Game week 13 was my best game week of the season, but it came at a cost. With injuries to the likes of Ismaila Sarr and suspensions to Senesi, the game week 14 team isn't looking too good. So in today's video, we're going to review the game week 13 free hit, going to look at some of those replacements for our teams, and importantly take a look at my game week 14 transfer plan. So as always, if you look forward to today's video, make sure you drop a like and of course hit that subscribe button. Enough waffling, let's get to today's video. So in game week 13, I ended up activating my free hit. We discussed this in the previous videos and my team selection, and thank goodness I ended up activating the free hit. Now, first and foremost, let me just say, for anybody that we mentioned about activating the triple captain, whether I spoke about it on the live stream or in comments, I still stand by that decision. If you didn't want a free hit, triple captain in game week 13 at home against Leeds was by far and away the best time to activate it. This is the perfect example of why you cannot take FPL too seriously, otherwise it will ruin your life and in particular your weekend. The swing was ridiculous, in particular some of the free hit players that ended up scoring double-digit returns. Thankfully, obviously for myself, ended up getting them right, but again, for those that triple captain, don't get yourself too down. It still was the right choice if you didn't want to free hit. But look, 72 points for the free hit team in a single game week is fantastic. And it's now put me to an overall rank of 54,000 in the world. So it's been a really good last 10 game weeks, really. Big standouts, of course. Foden with that 15-pointer. For those that went Jeremy Doku, honestly, we spoke about this in the previous videos. There wasn't really much in it. It was just the minutes. Foden was the one that come off with that 15-pointer. Obviously delighted for my team. 14 points for Cody Gakpo, but again, that late goal from him. Otherwise, it would have just been an assist and a pretty meh pick, if I'm honest. And then, of course, Thiago with those 13 points. Not as big of a game from him because, of course, he was just generally a great buy for people. And a lot of people brought him in regardless of whether they were free hitting or not. So those were the three big returners. I'm delighted with the double Aston Villa clean sheet. Spoke about how that was the one that I really wanted to target. Thankfully, that come in. Martinez being the GOAT with 7 points. O'Reilly with a 4-pointer, even though Man City conceded 2, of course. The big disappointment is going to be Mo Salah. I didn't realise he wasn't starting. And then when he didn't start, I at least thought he would come on for the last 30 minutes. 0 game time for him, which meant didn't think I would need my bench for this free hit, but Richards coming in for just the 1-pointer shows that you still always have to pay attention to your bench, even on a free hit, because that could have gone disastrously if there was an obvious person to have as the first sub and I didn't pick him. So Richards coming in for that 1.4 Mo Salah is what it is on that one. I didn't see him being completely benched for the whole game. Outside of that, Sarr 3-pointer, we knew that was going to happen. We all brought ourselves in thinking that Sarr was the next reincarnation of Kylian Mbappe. It just never was going to happen. Rodgers with a 3-pointer, regressing back to what really the numbers were prior to his double-digit haul in game week 12. And of course, Erling Haaland with the blank. I'm going to be honest, obviously it was great for me because I free hitted and his ownership was over 200%. But like I said, don't get yourselves too down if you triple captained him, because it still was the right play. Fair play to anybody that went for captaincy outside of Erling Haaland. You are braver than what I am. 72 points. Really great game week. Great overall rank now. But I'm going to be honest, game week 14 is terrible. So let's take a look at game week 14 and please let me know in the comment section how you got on. So take a look at my disaster of a game week 14 current team. So I want to give you a bit of housekeeping first and foremost. Firstly, game week 14 is a mid-week deadline. So this video is coming out on Monday. The deadline is Tuesday evening, 6:30 p.m. UK time. Obviously, check out wherever you are in the world. But reminder, it is a midweek deadline, which always throws out just huge curveballs, players that get benched that we weren't anticipating, players coming in. It is going to be just a train wreck of a game week. I'm calling it now, in particular with the things that have happened with suspensions and injuries, which we'll touch on in a second. The other thing that you've got to remember is that in game week 16, we are being topped up to 5 free transfers. So if you're sat there right now with 4 transfers and you're looking at game week 14 thinking, I have no idea who I want to buy, that is fine. But if you really want to benefit from the 5 transfers that are given to us in game week 16, you've got to try and use up as many of those transfers in either game week 14 or game week 15. So just have that in the back of your mind if you're sat there with loads of transfers. For me right now, I've got 1.9 million in the bank. Great. I've got 2 free transfers. Great. The team, though, not so great. So let me just run through it from top to bottom, and then we'll talk through who are the players that are fine and who are the players that need to be addressed. So Rare at home against Brentford, absolutely fine. It was scary not having Arsenal in game week 13, but I spoke about how really, if there was a time to take him on, it was going to be away against Chelsea. And let's be honest, Chelsea were the better team. Even with the 10 men, Arsenal didn't really offer too much. So I'm really happy owning a piece of Arsenal defence going into this game against Brentford. Back 3 right now of Anderson, Van Dijk and Richards. Now I expect Anderson to start. Is it a good fixture? Absolutely not. But would I expect him to hit defensive contributions? Yes. So hopefully we get a 3-pointer there for Anderson. Van Dijk at home against Sunderland. Are we seeing a return of Liverpool? Absolutely not. Do I think Sunderland will score against Liverpool? Most likely. Is there a reason to sell Van Dijk? No, there isn't. So Van Dijk's fine. And Richards away against Burnley. He came back into the Palace team in game week 13 against Man United. I personally think Palace are going to struggle now from now and the foreseeable future. They have too many fixtures. They're getting run into the ground and they don't have the rotation really available to them. So I think the Crystal Palace stocks are going to start to slightly decline each and every game week, but I ain't selling him away against Burnley. In terms of the midfielders, Semenyo, I can't believe he didn't haul. Those at free hitted, we have dodged a bullet. Evan Nielsen, you have blood on your hands. You basically stop Semenyo owners getting a huge return. Happy with Semenyo at home against Everton. Enzo away against Leeds is a problem. He run himself into the ground against Arsenal for basically 60 minutes. And I think there is a chance he starts because Reece James simply can't start. Maresca's come out and said that. And also Caicedo is suspended. So Andre Santos will start in centre mid. And I don't really think he trusts anybody else. So I think Enzo will play, but I don't think he'll play the whole game. Bruno, obviously fantastic this week. And in Dyer away against Bournemouth, again, it's absolutely fine. But he is a player that, of course, is going to Africa Cup of Nations. Then a front 3 of Thiago. Pictures, some people are saying that he was on crutches. I need to monitor that one. Didn't see it myself, so I think he's okay to start. Mateta away against Burnley, always question marks about him. And Haaland, obviously, we think is fine. The problems. Sarr has been pictured and videoed on crutches. That is a problem. He will not be available for game week 14. Huge doubts about game week 15. He's got to be sold. And then Senesi is suspended for this game against Everton, which is so frustrating because I was going to start him. And now the situation with Senesi is that after this fixture, I would say from a defensive perspective, they aren't great. Yes, Bournemouth obviously don't compete in European football, which is a huge bonus. But do I think Senesi is worth keeping through the suspension and beyond? Not really, especially when my team is looking like this. So I think it is time to sell both of those in game week 14 and try and improve the general strength of the squad. So I will be taking some transfers and maybe even a point sit. So let's take a look at some replacements for those players and also my game week 14 transfer plans and a little bit in the future. So first up, taking a look at these Ismaila Sarr replacements. I personally don't think Crystal Palace are now a team to buy because I just think there are too many fixtures. First thing I want to highlight here, and this goes for Palace and also all replacements that we are looking at. We've got the fixtures here for the teams that we're going to target, but also between game weeks 15 and 16, European football is a factor. So Palace obviously have their European football. And remember, they still aren't completely through on that. So they do need to win some games and play a strong team. For Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Newcastle, Forest, that is going to impact all of those. And those are the teams that I'm kind of targeting as an Ismaila Sarr replacement. So have that in the back of your minds. And then, of course, we've got the EFL Cup quarterfinals between game week 17 and 18. There's no rest for the wicked here. So that is going to be for the teams like City. That's going to be for the teams like Palace, who are looking to sell. So also have that in the back of your mind. Now, the players that we're looking to replace with, I firstly want to say I'm a Bruno Fernandes owner, but if I didn't own him, he'd be right up there. When we talk about guaranteed minutes over this Christmas period, they don't come much better than him. Yes, he was a little bit lucky with his assists. The assist to Mason Mount, he literally just touched it 2 yards. But do I know every single game he's playing, he's going to be on penalties, and the Man United fixtures aren't too bad? Yes. So I actually would have Bruno Fernandes right up there as my number one replacement for Ismaila Sarr if you can afford it. But I already own him, so I can't consider him. So the players that we're looking at right now are going to include Saka, Gakpo, Foden, Eze, Minter, Elliot Anderson, not Anderson of Fulham, of course, and then Bruno Guimaraes. Lots of players to talk about. And of course, we've got the fixtures here. So I'm just going to run through them very quickly because I appreciate they're all different price points, but they're all players that I can actually afford as part of transfer combinations. So first up for me, Bukayo Saka. When I look at the fixtures coming up, Brentford, very scary not to own. Wolves in game week 16, very scary not to own. And also, they have lots of home games coming up, which I do back Arsenal in all of these fixtures. Now, have I actually been watching Bukayo Saka from an eye test perspective and have been scared of a monster haul? Not really, I'm going to be honest. 0.59 expected goal involvement is solid, but the XG is only 0.28 per 90. However, is he just a guy who has loads of routes to points? He absolutely does. Now, could Arteta start Madueke in some of these fixtures? Yes, he could. But after slipping up against Chelsea and previously against Sunderland, I don't think he can afford to bench his best player in Bukayo Saka. So I am scared not to own Saka. But the problem is there other options that I could actually take that provide a bit more upside? Now, Cody Gakpo's on the list here. And remember, we get 5 free transfers in game week 16. So you could almost just go for a short-term punt and then look to pivot away afterwards once you get given all of these transfers. And for the next 2, Sunderland and then Leeds, I think Gakpo isn't too bad at all. The only issue is, if Salah comes back into the team, I could easily see Gakpo come out of the team if maybe Wirtz gets played off the left. So even though I like Gakpo as a pick, I think over this Christmas period, it'd probably be a bit crazy of me to go there because I just don't think he is a guaranteed 90-minute man. Once the likes of Ekitike also return, who could compete on that left-hand side. So for me, Gakpo is out, but I just wanted to put him in there as one to consider for those that want a piece of Liverpool's attack. Now, the big one for me, the one that is going to be taken on Saka as an alternative, is going to be Phil Foden. Now, when we look at Man City's fixtures, Fulham away, then Sunderland, Palace, again, off the back of European football. I think that's going to impact Palace more than any other team. Then West Ham. I think that's a really nice run of 4 fixtures for Man City. I think Foden is stepping up. Yes, are we reacting off the back of a brace? We are. But I also think he's just been ticking over quite nicely from an underlying stats perspective. 0.45 expected goal involvement, 0.3 XG. Solid numbers. And do I think the ceiling of Phil Foden is a bit higher than Saka? I do. But do I think Saka is just going to be consistently a more regular returner? I also think that is the case. So we've got to think about whether 2 million more for Saka is worth it or not. For me, Eze, I've mentioned it here, regular 70-minute sub, and now we got Odegaard returning and Marino who can play in the midfield. Even though I think Eze is fantastic, he's an easy player for Arteta to take off after 70 minutes. So then it comes down to the cheap ones. Minter at 6.2 is really interesting because the fixtures are great. Villa, West Ham, Liverpool away in 16 off the back of European football. Then Sunderland, Arsenal in 18. And then, of course, West Ham away in 19. No European football for Brighton. And Minter has started every league match. I really do like Minter as a pick. Little bit of a difficult player to predict his returns, but I do like him nonetheless. Then it comes down to the DEFCON players. Elliot Anderson for me, very boring. And the only reason I would go there is to actually enable myself to go somewhere else. I would only go down to Elliot Anderson to free up funds to go and improve another player in my team. However, the fixtures aren't too bad. And also he's hitting 13.46 DEFCON per 90, which is brilliant. So he's ticking over nicely. But is he my number one replacement? Not really. And then Bruno Guimaraes, he's ticking over well. But do I actually want a piece of him in this? Not really, I'm going to be honest with you. So for that, it is Saka, Foden or Minter as my choices. I'm going to talk about the best picks, but hopefully this section has covered off a bit of detail. I think if you can get to Saka easily, I just think that is a sensible play with Brentford at home in 14 and Wolves at home in 16. So taking a look at some Senesi replacements. Again, you can keep Senesi if you want, but he is suspended for game week 14. And then the fixtures do get a little bit tricky beyond that. I'm starting to ask the question, Senesi, you've been a great player. We love you. You've given us so much of a price hike, but I think now is time to sell you. Now, I think there are loads of options available, I'm going to be honest. But again, I'm looking at some replacements for my particular team. And the 3 that we're going to look at is going to be Newcastle's Chow at 4.9 million, Nico O'Reilly at 5.1 million, and Timber at 6.4 million, all offering something slightly different. So If we look at Chow first and foremost, he's the only one of this three that offer defensive contributions per 90. He's averaging 9.09. O'Reilly and Timber just don't do that. So Chow offers us a bit of a decent floor where I expect him to kind of pick up defensive contributions every other game or 2 every 3 games and then tick over with the clean sheets for Newcastle. I personally think the return of Livramento and Lewis Hall is just elevating Newcastle not only as a defence but also just a general team. I think the jump from Trippier to Livramento is huge, and I also think that's the case of Burn up to Lewis Hall. I think it just improves Newcastle massively. And also, 2 league goals, both scored in game week 13. So please don't be looking at Chow thinking this is a goal scoring monster. He offers a threat 100%. He's a big lad, but don't be used to him scoring all the time. And the big thing, he started every league game since game week 5. Could we see some rotation? Yes, 100%. But I think Chow has got that right side of centre-back role pretty much locked in right now. I don't think anyone's displacing him anytime soon. When we look at the fixtures coming up, very much a play that could be short-term. But Spurs at home, the way Spurs are and the way Newcastle are at home, I think that's absolutely fine. Then you've got Burnley at home in game week 15, great. Then you have got the big derby in game week 16, which could Newcastle just rock up and show them who's boss 100%. But then Chelsea at home in 17, definitely a fixture that they'll step up in for sure. And then Man United and Burnley. I actually think the fixtures aren't too bad for Newcastle, and I think Newcastle are going to improve as a team in general, I'm going to be honest. Now, in terms of Nico O'Reilly, 5.1 million, 1 goal, 3 assists. I think he is going to be a regular player who gets into great positions. And my personal opinion now is that Aït-Nouri is not a City pick. He's going away for the African Cup of Nations in game week 16. I just don't really get why Pep would play Aït-Nouri in any of these fixtures in the next 2, Fulham or Sunderland. I think he's just going to be like, O'Reilly, let's get you back in the team and you're going to be in here for the long term. So I think O'Reilly's great. The only hesitation I have is I still don't back City clean sheet perspective until Rodri returns and they can play Rodri and Nico Gonzalez alongside one another, because I think that's what they're going to need in midfield to really solidify this team. I don't look at it and think a guaranteed clean sheet against Fulham, a guaranteed clean sheet against Sunderland or Palace. So I'm just a little bit sceptical of what the upside is of O'Reilly if it isn't attacking returns, because he doesn't get DEFCON at all. And then there's Timber, and this is what we had last time. Are we just completely looking at alternatives to Arsenal for the sake of alternatives? When I look at the fixtures for Arsenal coming up, I think that's a clean sheet in game week 14. I think that's probably a clean sheet in game week 16. Would I be surprised if they got a clean sheet against Everton? No, not at all. When I look at Timber, I don't really think he's as good as others are thinking in the final third, but 0.3 expected goal involvement per 90 is fine. 90 minutes, 9 of the last 10 league matches is great. The problem is he does not hit defensive contributions at all. And I just have a weird feeling in the back of my mind that eventually Ben White is going to come back into this team. When I watch Arsenal a few times, I think Timber's been really good. But I think there's times where Ben White's overlapping that we saw in previous seasons just massively improves Bukayo Saka. And I think once that Chelsea game happened, and really Arsenal didn't capitalise on those 10 men, I think the overlapping of Ben White would have massively enhanced Arsenal in that game, and maybe something that Arteta's going to look at and think, you know what, I think Ben White needs to come back into this team just to get the best out of Bukayo Saka, their best player. So I'm not sitting here saying that Timber's going to lose his minutes, I'm not, but could I see a world where Ben White starts to integrate himself back into the team? I could. I just want to put it out there so that when it does happen, I can come back to this recording, but I still think Timber is the obvious play if you can afford it for Senesi. So take a look at my game week 14 transfer plans, and as we've spoken about, over the next few weeks, I do feel like I need to get some sort of Arsenal investment. I just don't see how I can go into these next few weeks without another Arsenal player for Brentford at home, which have been great, but do I think Arsenal are just a better team 100%? And also Wolves in game week 16. Now, of course, I can address that issue with the 5 free transfers in game week 16. So it's not like I need to go triple Arsenal straight out the bat, but it is a team that is very evident is missing in my game week 14 team. So we spoke about the sort of replacements right now. Firstly, I want to say the easy thing for me to do would be, with my transfers, is get rid of Senesi and bring in Timber, as you can see here. That is just a very easy way of getting a piece of that Arsenal defence once again. And that probably would then mean taking out Thiago away against Arsenal and my team will look like this. And I could easily, if I wanted to, then just do that and we are done. It will give me 0.3 million in the bank to reassess in game week 15. And part of me thinks that is just the play. Yes, I don't have Bukayo Saka, which is not ideal, but could I also see a world where if Saka's played 90 minutes, possibly against Brentford, he plays 60 and then comes off, and then they obviously have him in preparation for the weekend game against Aston Villa, which is a big game. And do I feel like I need Saka for the Aston Villa game? Not really. What I need to make sure is that I give myself a plan in place to have Saka from game week 16 onwards. So for that, there is part of me that thinks, do Timber, and then think about, is that actually enough upside for a pick in game week 14? We spoke about the midfield replacements for Ismaila Sarr. Of course, Saka is not one of those options, and this would now mean Foden is not viable either. So we would be looking at some of those cheaper options that I discussed, Minter or really Elliot Anderson, all the way down to that. And when I look at Minter's fixture at home against Aston Villa, it's not terrible. And then afterwards for Minter, the fixtures that we discussed are pretty okay. So something that I am considering possibly is maybe doing Ismaila Sarr out to Minter. That is a consideration for sure. And bringing him in instead of Anderson, who I think will get defensive contributions, but he won't exactly do incredible against City, I don't believe. And the team would look like this for game week 14, which I don't think is horrendous. Then in game week 15, we would come into this. So Ray away against Aston Villa, Timber away against Aston Villa. Not ideal, but again, could I see Arsenal just making it really difficult for Villa and a really low scoring game? I could see that. Then Minter at home against West Ham, fantastic. Ndiaye at home against Nottingham Forest to finish off is okay. It's not the best. Then, of course, we've got the rest of the team kind of picking itself. I would be tempted to start Thiago if we just see another woeful performance from, of course, Spurs. That's not a bad fixture. And then I would be debating whether starting Anderson. And if we look at the fixtures for game week 15, I would then just avoid Saka for one more week. And then with my 5 free transfers in game week 16, probably address the situation because I can't not have Saka for the Wolves game. So then really I look at it. Man City against Sunderland, I actually think that's going to be a tight affair with the way that Sunderland are playing right now. So I probably wouldn't invest in Man City, and I don't feel like I need Man City defensive coverage personally. Then I look at the rest of it. Yes, I don't have Newcastle for Burnley. That could be a consideration if somebody does crop up. And then, of course, I've got the good fixture for Brighton against West Ham. But again, I'd want to use one of these free transfers. So maybe for a 1 game week punt with 0.7 million, I could get myself to a Chow if I wanted to. If I think Richards is just completely cooked, maybe a move that I could do just for the 1 week is do that and bring in Chow for the Burnley game. Hopefully racks up some defensive contributions and also the clean sheet. And then, of course, a reminder for game week 16, we would come into this. I've already got Thiago in, which is great. I've got Anderson if I want to start him in any fixture. But of course, then Ndiaye will be going off to the African Cup of Nations, so I will have to sell him. And just a little bit of a kind of thing out there. What I could do as part of my transfer for people that are wondering is possibly sell Ndiaye and bring in Saka. And I would have to free up 3.2 million. But I think this is the week maybe where I would then take out Mateta. For those that are wondering, I think Mateta is fantastic. But do I think he's just going to be a little bit cooked over this period? I'm just anticipating that. So Mateta out and kind of dead spot in the team there. And the team would look something like this then for game week 16. And a reminder, in game week 17, I would then still have 4 free transfers for those that are wondering. And I would then triple captain Erling Haaland in this game week to get out of the way against West Ham. And then I'd reassess, see exactly what this team would need. But of course, having Minter in there looks quite nice for the foreseeable future with the games coming up. And he rotates quite well with the rest of the team. So just to conclude, I still don't know exactly what I want to do. But the current plan, if you want to have a look at the summary, is going to be Senesi to Timber, Sarr to Minter, Richards to Chow for a 1 game week punt. then Ndidi Saka in game week 16 and Mateta to GUI just to free up the funds. Yes guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's video looking at my game week 14 transfer plans. A bit of a longer one, but of course we don't have time to put out loads of content unfortunately with the deadline on Tuesday, so I'm kind of trying to combine loads of different videos in this particular one. I do hope it's provided some value. If I've missed anything, and I inevitably have, please do put it in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to it. If you have any specific team questions, also let me know. But importantly, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in tomorrow's video and, of course, the deadline live stream. Have an amazing day. Take care. Cheers.